Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome in to a special edition of the Steelers Sunday Night Q&A. My name is Jeremy Betts, and I was not here last week. The week before that, it was just a solo show. So we're getting back to the guests now, and I've got somebody new to the Steel Curtain Network and new to our listeners here. And I wanted to get him on the show just to kind of get his take and perspective on the Pittsburgh Steelers. You saw him on our draft coverage. You probably have seen some of his work on the website, but I wanted to introduce Chris Laverty. Chris, welcome to the show, man. I appreciate you tuning in or joining me. Excuse me, not tuning in. I appreciate all the listeners tuning in. But Chris, I appreciate you joining me, man. How's it going?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. How's it going with you?
It's going great. I'm excited too. Anytime I get a little break from doing a show that I'm typically on or I do most weeks, I feel like I've missed something. So I'm glad to be back doing what I'm supposed to be doing here on a Sunday night, talking some Steelers football. And yes, there's been no games. Obviously, there hasn't been any action on the field really, but we've got a lot to talk about. The schedule's out. What's going on this week? NFLPA Rookie Premiere, where fascinatingly enough, Chris, I don't know if you find this irritating for teams who pick offensive linemen, but those guys don't get invited to Rookie Premiere, even though you start getting these 4th and 5th round receivers and quarterbacks. What's going on with that?
I have no idea because, I mean, in all fairness, what is better looking than those premier linemen coming in, 300 pounds, just, you know,
oh, man.
like they need to be at the Rookie Premiere.
They do. The picture would look so much better. There's so much open space between people here. They need to be able to fill those gaps a little bit. I don't know.
Like Fandom sitting right there between two of those skinny receivers. I mean, it would just make the picture whole.
Absolutely. And I know that's like jersey try on and young stud receiver looks good in his new get up. But I mean, what's more intimidating, Troy Fautanu standing there in his new Steelers uniform, or Roman Wilson, all 179 pounds of him soaking wet? I don't know. All right. Hey, enough joking around. Hey, Chris, before we get into some of the topics of today, and listeners, feel free to add questions in whenever you come up with those. We'll answer those here on the show. We'll talk about if the Steelers are built for this schedule that came out. We're going to see, we're going to talk about all of that tonight. But first, Chris, since you're fairly new to the Steel Curtain Network, since you're definitely new to the podcast side of things, just wanted to give you a chance to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you became a part of Steel Curtain Network, what made you a Steelers fan in the first place. Just a little bit of your story, man. Go ahead.
Well, I'm from West Virginia, so it was either going to be a Pittsburgh fan or Cincinnati, Cleveland. I lucked out in the draw, Pittsburgh.
Hey, let's go.
I had an uncle that was a Steelers fan, plus I had Fox Sports Pittsburgh for my regional network. So,
there you go.
You know, it's just meant to be, plus the Slash era as a kid. So,
hey, yeah.
But also, with that being said, I'm in West Virginia, not in the actual local Pittsburgh market. So it's like, all right, I'm trying to find, Steelers coverage. Used to be like download a radio app, tune into like the local radio up there. Not going to dive into it, but it just got annoying after a while. So it's like, all right, let's type in Pittsburgh Steelers on Spotify, see what I can find, which I found the Let's Ride podcast first.
Yeah.
Which got me into just the rest of the Steel Curtain. I think it was probably bad language that made me laugh a little bit. You never know what Brian Davis is going to say.
Never do.
Exactly. Then just the rest of it, the homies, the hangover, the fix. Like I just was like, this is the podcast network to be in if you're a Steelers fan. I mean, there's something every day for you.
There absolutely is. And a great plug for the network. Fantastic job. I don't even need to go there now. So thank you for doing that. Okay, West Virginia. Are you a West Virginia Mountaineers fan? So were you super pumped about the Zach Frazier drafting, or is that kind of out of your wheelhouse? Okay.
Yeah, we needed a center. I had watched a great center here for 3 years. I'm just kind of the cards were starting to fall that way. Shannon was probably more excited than me. Not that I wasn't, but but I was stoked. I was like, oh, this is what I wanted. Cause I understand they want position versatility on the line, but I'm like, just get a center. if that's
Yeah.
like the only thing he can do, I mean, there's a lot going on for a center during a game that like the versatility there isn't a big deal for me.
Yeah, Shannon White takes Stoked to a whole other
Yep.
level. So, and we're so excited for Shannon. I mean, we were making jokes about it, but I think there were several wellness checks throughout the course of the draft weekend for Shannon, just to make sure, especially once Beanie Bishop was signed as an undrafted free agent. There,
I know.
it was like I don't know, too much of a good thing almost, and you had to worry about it there for a minute.
Mhm. Especially because he was like on the draft coverage podcast when
Yeah,
he got drafted. Then you don't hear from Shannon for a little bit, and it's
yeah.
like, oh no, what happened?
Right. And for any of you who thought, "Oh, that's all for show," no, that was
No,
Shannon's real reaction. So, um, yeah, Chris, I know you were a part of the draft talk, and you came
mhm.
on the live feed for when we were doing that, and we enjoyed having you on there. I want to know if you were as excited as I was when the Steelers drafted Zach Frazier, that it meant that Troy Fautanu wasn't going to be playing center for this team. I was so worried that they drafted Troy Fautanu to be a center, and oh man, I'm so glad that was
That
not the
or
case.
like they're going to give like Nate Herbig
Oh
the just. I was worried something was going to happen if they weren't going to take a center that like I didn't want to happen.
yeah,
But then Frazier fell to him, and I was like, oh, thank goodness.
yeah, that was my exact reaction when they announced Troy Fautanu as a tackle. I was like, yes, yes.
I know.
Now get a center so we can make sure.
I don't know if you thought it was funny. Like, I don't know if you're watching the ESPN broadcast, but they announced him as a tackle, but they came up guard on like the
Yeah,
bar, and I'm like, little off. I'm
yeah,
glad they announced him as tackle though, because that's what I'm going to go
right.
by what they announced. But I saw that guard at first, and I was like, oh no, what are we doing
Yeah,
here?
they're just putting up what Mel Kiper tells them to put up
I
on
know.
his screen there.
I
So
know.
yeah. Okay, so the other question I had for you about your Steelers fandom, are you the kind that loves to go to the games, or do you prefer to watch from home? What's your go-to there? I don't know. Are you a season ticket holder?
No,
What's your preference there?
I'm not a season ticket holder. I have only been to a couple games. I went to the Bengals game last year where
Okay.
Mason started off. So I'm
Yeah,
talking about an electric atmosphere.
sure.
Um, but honestly, too, the way just football is anymore, I like being at home watching it. You see pretty much everything. You don't have to
Yeah.
fight crowds or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, not that I'm anti-crowd. It's just you have your own setup at home. You see everything. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, I can pause it, run and get
Yes.
some food or something, come right back. Like,
Yep.
stay off Twitter for a few minutes so I get caught up. But
There you go. Yeah, exactly. You got to do that. I've got a 3-year-old little girl, and so staying home is definitely the better option.
oh
Now,
yeah,
I live way down here in Asheville, North Carolina, so I'm
okay,
nowhere near Pittsburgh, but we make it up for a game every now and then. We try to make it out when we can, but I think
hmm
we might try to go to the opener in Atlanta actually, because I've got family members that are Falcons fans too. We'll see. We'll see if we can
that'll
make it
be
to that
awesome.
one. And
You
it's
you know,
always been kind of our family dream to see Steelers Falcons play each
and
other
that'll
live.
be almost like a home game for the Steelers, the way Steelers fans
Hey,
travel to Atlanta. So
absolutely, absolutely. And maybe we'll make that crowd a little more black and gold when we get there. So,
there you go.
alrighty. The topic for today's show are the 2024 Steelers built for this, and by this I mean this schedule. Chris, I know there were a lot of overreactions to the schedule,
hmm
but some of it was warranted, right? I think you're looking at a schedule that I've never seen before for a team, and maybe it's just because I haven't been paying attention to other teams' schedules and just the Steelers one. But it, in my experience watching football, I have never looked at a team's slate of games and said, "What the crap are we doing here?
Oh, I know.
What are we thinking?" So I wanted to get your reaction on the schedule.
Like, used to be crazy for me is like I thought it was crazy like the last few years when we've ended the season with like maybe two divisional games, and I'm like, man, like ending it 2 weeks in a row, especially if we're fighting for a playoff spot, that's tough. But then to have all 8 on the back half of the season,
Yeah,
plus the now, oh, I'm like you. At first, I'm like, oh, I don't know, but then it's like it simmered for a little bit, and I'm like, the Chiefs, we have them on Christmas Day at Heinz Field. That late
yep,
in the season, maybe they got the division locked up. So
yeah,
are they going to sit, like a Travis Kelsey who as you know, they weren't ready for the playoffs, stuff like that. So like, okay, we might get them in a sweet spot there. But in
Yep.
typical Pittsburgh fashion, I would much rather have games like that in the back half of the season because that's typically when the line gets going, whatever
Yeah.
quarterback they have going, he gets going. Like it's just sort of like all systems start clicking post bye week.
Yeah. I
Which,
I think when you look at it on paper, you're like, oh, well, this is it. I don't know how they're going to do this. But then you look a little deeper, and again, you're talking about just a screwy weekend for all four of those teams that are
yep,
playing the Saturday before and then Christmas Day. I mean, nobody's disadvantaged. So I'll take that from the NFL. Thank you for doing that. It's not like
yep,
the Chiefs played, it had a bye week right before or something like that.
exactly.
So you take that. But yeah, I mean, there's so much attrition that goes down throughout the course of a season. I mean, the fact that the Steelers don't play the Joe Burrow Bengals until what is that, week 13?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's week 13. I mean, Joe Burrow was done long before then last year. And you're talking about a team or about a player with a surgery that there's some concerns whether or not he's going to be himself ever again. And so
Yeah.
we'll see how it plays out. But and I'm not hoping for injuries either. In
No.
fact, if it were my dream scenario, the Steelers pound the rock down the throats of all these healthy teams down the end, and you're like, okay, this is a Super Bowl contender. But in the end, we'll see how it plays out. The Steelers do need to stay healthy. I worry about their depth when compared to some of these other more high-profile teams that they'll play on the back end of the season. But what I am not concerned about, yes, say what?
Sorry for the 2-year-old in the background.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Mine gets in here sometimes. She's in bed already.
He's getting ready.
There you go. No, it's, I just think that the Steelers, if they can come in here and they can show something against healthy teams, they have a chance to put themselves in the conversation at the very least. And I'd rather that than play the Chiefs without Mahomes and Kelsey because somebody's hurt or resting for the playoffs. That's just my opinion, but I do think that it's a schedule that you're going to have to take advantage early, and then hopefully get everything together under a new offensive coordinator, new quarterback, new offensive line, a lot of new receivers. It's a lot of new. They're going to take some time to get going. Do you think that that's the case as well?
Yeah, I do, and that's why I think I'd much rather face like some of the divisional opponents late because like you play Lamar early in the season, you might get a game like San Francisco week 1 last year. I want to avoid those kinds of thrashings and starting off with Atlanta, Denver, who's also got a lot of new closer games, no matter how it falls. Like in like Tomlin fashion, we'll probably drop one early that we shouldn't, but later on in the season, you're going to get one you probably shouldn't either.
Right.
So.
Right. And the Steelers success against the division over the last few years can't be understated. Now, they haven't fared well against Joe Burrow led Cincinnati teams. I think they're 1-4 when he actually plays.
But in all fairness, most teams that face a Joe Burrow led Bengals have their own problems when he's healthy.
Yeah. Right. That offense just for some reason gives Mike Tomlin's team trouble, Mike Tomlin's defense some trouble. But I think the offense is more well-suited to keep them in games a little bit better if the defense has an off outing, which hasn't been the case in the past. If the defense has an off outing, you just turn the TV off because the result. And I don't think that's the case this year.
If the Arthur Smith offense clicks like it should, I'm so excited to see what this defense is going to do game in and game out when they actually get 8-9 minutes of rest in between, instead of the Matt Canada 3-and-out specials.
Right.
Because I mean, we all remember that playoff game against Kansas City. I mean, Minka starts off with a pick 6. We shut Mahomes out 6 straight times right after, but the offense goes 3-and-out 8 straight times, and then the rest of the game is history. So I mean, to kind of hopefully get back to a ground and pound type of control the clock, it starts clicking. You start playing the Bengals, the Browns, the Ravens later on. I mean, this could set up for something pretty nice later on.
Yeah. I agree. And there's been a lot of talk in like I listen to Dave Damashek a lot on his -3 podcast, infamous Steelers fan,
Yep.
more or less. But I love Dave Damashek. So Dave, if you're
He's
listening to
awesome.
this, let me know. No, Dave loves the fact that the Steelers are, as he puts it, zigging while the rest of the NFL is zagging, and that Mike Tomlin really believes that he can put together a rough and tumble team to beat up the finesse offenses and the the teams that are led by these superstar alien quarterbacks that the Steelers don't have. When you don't have that quarterback, I think that's the way to build. Tennessee's tried that in recent past, and they've been fairly successful. Even the Chiefs, they recognized that they did not have the horses on offense that they typically do at the skill positions, and they did a fantastic job putting together a defense that leveraged that and made it work. And they were Super Bowl championship.
I mean, besides that 2-minute drive, which you give Patrick Mahomes the ball with 2 minutes left, I don't care. Like me and you could probably play receiver and something will happen. But as far as the game goes, I mean, it was Chris Jones in that defense. Like that absolutely just wreaked havoc and kept that game for him.
Yeah, and I just see that this is a team that has an identity now, which maybe they haven't in the past, and it's a lot of fun to predict. Now, this is us being very positive, hey, and I take that. I wear the cap, right?
I don't, I'm always half full with the Steelers, not half empty.
If you're right, if you're watching this in black and white, these are black and gold glasses that I'm looking through here. So let me tell you this though, one thing that I cannot wait to see play out is the quarterback situation.
Oh, I can't either.
Yeah, I personally feel like Russ has a tank of fuel left that he's ready to dip into, and I think that he's going to have something to give the Steelers this year. That being said, Justin Fields is immensely talented, much younger, and there's a chance that he steps on the field and just looks so dang good that you can't take him off the field. And so there's a scenario where both of these guys have a lot to give to the Steelers this year. I don't necessarily see a scenario where the Steelers are just losing 10 games, 11 games this year because the quarterbacks aren't good. They've already displayed that they can overcome poor quarterback play. It's not going to get worse than it has been the last couple of years. So what are you looking forward to most out of the quarterback competition, and who do you think has the upper hand?
I think Russ has the upper hand only because if this line starts clicking the way it is set up to click and it gels and the run game is there, I think we'll get a Russ that's closer to that Seattle Russ, like mid-years when you had the line, when you had beast mode. Not saying we have a beast mode, but we've got Najee and Jalen, which is a duo, can do a lot for us, play action especially. But Fields, I mean, his ceiling is, it's up there. It's better than anything we've had, for a while. And I mean, if we do get Denver Russ, which I mean, he gets a bad rap, especially last year at Denver. He wasn't awful. It was just a bad situation. I mean,
I agree.
If Fields cleans up the turnovers, I mean, that with those legs, I mean, it'd be hard not to play him.
Yeah,
especially
it really
if he steps onto the field at any point and just breaks that first 30-yard run. I mean, I feel bad for Russ because every Pittsburgh fan is going to be like, that's the guy.
Yeah. Russ better not get hurt during the home opener and let Justin Fields out on that field.
Oh, I agree.
If you're in Pittsburgh and Justin Fields takes the field for the first time, it's over, Russ. I'm sorry. It's going to be over because he's got an electricity to him that we haven't had since Slash that you've mentioned you grew up a fan of. So I think it's very interesting. One question that we did get from John Pennington way at the top of the show: why hasn't Fields addressed the media yet in Pittsburgh? I just think the Steelers brought him in and they said, you know what? You don't have to be the guy here right now. We don't want you to be the guy here. We don't want you to have any pressure on you. We just want you to come, refocus, work hard, compete, and see what you can do. And I think that is coming out in the media relations as well. But I want to get your thoughts on this.
No, I agree. That is like Mike Tomlin just putting his arm around Justin being like, hey, man, just take a step back, take a breath. We're going to work on cleaning the game up a little bit. You don't have to be the guy. There was a lot going on media wise in Chicago for you over the last year. They pretty much knew going into the season Caleb was their guy if they were going to be bad. Uh, so it's just like, just get back to football. Like, you don't have
Yeah.
to worry about anything. Russ is the one throwing first pitch at Pittsburgh games, showing up at the Penguins games, like being everywhere. Like, let Russ just sort of take that, and they're just letting Fields just get on the field.
Yeah, let him marinate, right, in
Mm-hmm.
this offense. Let the Arthur Smith system wash over him, clean him
Exactly.
up, fresh start, a baptism by Arthur Smith offense, and see what happens here for him. Now, we have some people in the chat that famously did not want Justin Fields
Mm-hmm.
in the lead up when all the conversation is what are the Steelers going to do at quarterback? We now know what they've done. So I think it's a fair thought, and I wanted to bring up this this comment here from Robert Road. Wilson is and should be the starter. Fields just doesn't see the field well enough. This is a fair criticism of Justin Fields. I think when you watch his tape, you want to give him the benefit of the doubt that maybe the scheme didn't set him up well, but there are times, Chris, where he just doesn't look or doesn't appear to see it, like his eyes glaze over
Mm-hmm.
with open receivers. But then I mean, there's 3 or 4 throws a game where you're like, okay, if this guy can do more of this, then we're set. Do you think that the product that we've seen from Justin Fields so far is what he is, or do you think there's some growth that can be there for him in the future?
Oh, I think there's some growth. I mean, part of I think his problem in Chicago was he took on being Superman too much, and between not being properly developed, just not having a good team, and probably, I mean, as a young quarterback that's used, I mean, he went from playing at Ohio State,
Yeah,
being in the college football playoff, probably winning all through high school, to just losing all the time, getting beat, getting hit a lot, not having like the talent at the receiver position to just, you know, be there.
yeah,
And there are moments where he probably just was mentally a little checked out, like you said, with the glazed over and stuff, just like I'm tired of doing it all myself or whatever. Like, not
sure.
saying there's, but he's sort of like what, 24, I think, won't be 25 yet. So I mean, how can you not say
Yeah,
there won't be some growth? I mean,
yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that there's some areas where he can improve. I
oh,
think
absolutely.
I think giving him less to look at too. I like Luke Getzey more than most, but he does ask his quarterback to play the game at a level of difficulty that can sometimes be tough for young quarterbacks to grasp. Um, Especially a guy who knows he can escape the pocket and use his legs. And when you're asking a guy to sit back there 3 seconds and try to figure it out and wait for these guys to come open, schematically that can work for a guy who's got the patience to do that. Maybe a pocket quarterback who trusts his offensive line and his ability to move in the pocket. For Justin Fields, he's like, okay, why am I still here? I could just get 15 yards with my legs,
Mm-hmm.
and so you see that wheel turning while you're watching gameplay. I think that it's an interesting dynamic for him. Some of the comments in here, he's not asked to do a whole lot of reading the field when you're in college at Ohio State. Ryan Day's system is very good for college quarterbacks, but not
Mm-hmm.
super great for the next step. CJ Stroud is defying most people's expectations. I thought he was going to be a fine quarterback. I didn't know it would be
Right.
this quick, but I think because he's he's a guy who can sit back and process a little bit more and doesn't actually rely on
Mm-hmm.
his legs outside of when he has to. It's
Oh
not
yeah.
a I'm going to do this because I can. I'm going to do this because I have to.
Right.
So I think that changes up how he translated to the NFL.
Well,
Fields hasn't been a bad quarterback though. I think
no.
that's a question.
And to go with that, with an Arthur Smith offense, he's going to be in probably more 11, 12 personnel.
Yeah,
The way the receiver room is right now, there's not going to be 3 receivers on the field. I don't think a lot as it stands. So, I mean, he'll be getting used to a little bit, just like 1, 2, 3, like first read, second read. If it's not there, there's not really necessarily a third option unless it's like, a tight end or something. but
Right.
he's not going to have those 4 or 5 receiver sets where he's got, read from left to right, right to left, or whatever. Like, I mean, especially like at the peak of the Arthur Smith Titans, it was pretty much Ryan Tannehill reading AJ Brown,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Fields can do that all day with George Pickens
Sure.
for all I
With
care.
George Pickens. Yep. Yeah. One read, go, or hit the slant coming,
Yeah.
or hit the crosser coming across. I think that's a great idea for him. Can he play under center? I think a lot of people are talking about, can he play under center in Arthur Smith's offense because it's a necessity. Look back to Arthur Smith with Marcus Mariota. A lot of RPOs, a lot of pistol formation, and working out of the shotgun, and you can do a lot of the same things without actually having to go under center. Now, there's some benefits still to being able to turn your back on the play and really suck in those linebackers and then work behind them with a traditional set snap and then backpedal, or not backpedal, but turn around and fake the handoff, that type of play action. But there's a lot that you can do with that type of system from a pistol type formation where you're doing all these RPOs. So I think that that's an overstated part as well. We're all probably burying the lead here a little bit in the fact that I do think Russell Wilson has something to prove this year, and I think that the Steelers believe that he can take them places, and so I think that they are going to give him every chance to win the job. And Justin Fields might be a future play if Wilson doesn't get them where they want to go, but I think he's going to get the first crack at it, and I actually kind of believe that he's got enough left to take them places.
I agree. And then one thing in Fields' favor, he's going to be working with Russ all year.
Yeah.
And on those little things, Russ will be like a quarter. Like, Russ doesn't have like that ego. He will work with Justin Fields, I believe.
Oh yeah.
So And Russ is completely like comfortable under center and shotgun, whatever. So I think Fields getting to work with a quarterback like that and learning from a respected quarterback in the league on top of that, like, I just think the longer Fields sits, it's just going to be better for everybody.
I definitely agree. All right. Hey, we're going to go ahead, and it's a little bit late to do this, but we're going to go ahead and take our break for the audio listeners. So if you're watching us live, again, we're not going anywhere, but if you're listening on audio, wherever you get your podcasts, stay tuned. After this short break, we will be right back here on the Steelers Sunday Night Q&A. All right, we're back here on the Steelers Sunday Night Q&A. Jeremy Betts, Chris Laverty here talking Steelers football. The schedule release was last week. We're talking quarterbacks. We're talking about a team that is built different. And I think that this is where we can transition kind of to the title of the show, Chris. Are the Steelers built to win games in 2024 with this type of schedule that they have? What's your prediction for how this team is built right now?
As it stands right now, if I still expect them to make 1 or 2 more moves. I mean, last year, Quan Alexander was signed into training camp and stuff. So I'm not, I see 1 or 2 moves being made, even if it's like a week or 2 in the training camp. I still think it's at least a 10-win team right now, barring health. Okay. Don't get me wrong. But I think they would. I mean, we've won 10 games with like a Matt Canada as our offensive coordinator.
And a Kenny Pickett as our quarterback.
And I think between Russell Wilson wanting to prove something, Arthur Smith, a fired head coach, wanting to prove something, Mike Tomlin's always kind of wanting to put it in someone's face that, like, hey, you didn't think we'd be here. And there's a lot of talk last year in the national media, I don't know about locally, about whether or not he wanted to coach anymore, whether he'd, take off or not. Like, I just think between those 3 things right there, like, they're prime for at least 10 wins, maybe 11.
Yeah. I really, really want to agree with you, and I see the path to it. So there's a lot of pundits out there saying the Steelers are going to finish last in their division. They're going to struggle to win 6 or 7 games, and anybody saying that, like, if you're a national media guy and you're saying that, I don't care. I'm not going to get mad at you because you're not looking that deep at this. All you're seeing is Russell Wilson stunk in Denver. The Steelers have the toughest schedule in the league. They've got to play the Chiefs and the Eagles and all of these AFC North squads that we think are better than them, so they're going to suck. That is not how this works in Pittsburgh, and we've seen it time and time again enough to where we know outside of TJ Watt missing the whole season, this team is going to be in the playoff hunt by the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this is a team actually that is going to be in the AFC North hunt by the end of the year, more so than they have in the past because of the upgrades at the key positions. Even if the Steelers have an injury to their starter, like they did Kenny Pickett last year, you have a backup that you feel much better about, whether it's Russell Wilson starting and being hurt for Justin Fields coming in, or Justin Fields getting the start and then Russell Wilson coming in because Fields gets hurt. Either way, you don't have to worry, oh, Mitch Trubisky's going to throw this game. You know, you've got a guy that you feel comfortable coming in and being able to make plays for you. So that in and of itself is a leg up on most other teams in the league. Also, outside of TJ Watt, Chris, is there an injury that the Steelers could sustain outside of like multiple ones at a position, like 3 offensive line starters go down? Is there an injury where you're like, okay, the Steelers are done? I don't think there is one necessarily, but
not done, but like knock on wood, if George Pickens were to get hurt the way the receiver room is right now, I think it would. I mean, as long as your running backs are healthy, like I said, it wouldn't kill us.
Yeah,
but it would hurt.
Right.
I think what the TJ Watt injury would be to the defense. I think for this season, George Pickens' injury is to the offense.
You just don't have anybody else like him in the offense. Yeah, there's not a substitute for him right now. So, yeah, I that's why, you know, Cortland Sutton was all the rage a couple weeks ago. The Steelers, I think the Steelers thought they were going to get a deal done with Cortland Sutton. I really do, and then it kind of just fell through. Or they're like, well, let's just wait until training camp. That's probably what happened. The Broncos are probably saying, okay, we want to see what Troy Franklin has. We want to see what some of these other guys have before we even consider that. And see, okay, we'll wait.
And
so I don't doubt a move could be made.
No, and with Khan, year one, it was like make moves. You got the con artist and stuff.
Yeah.
But like with Justin Fields, we showed it, you know, and like kind of like Frazier dropping, like, and this draft in general, like Khan's got a very patient side. He understands.
Yes, patient aggression. Yeah, I like.
Yeah, like, you know, so he's just like waiting in the weeds. He's like, hey, prices drop. They think they, you know, got this number on it. We're not going to go there, but over time they'll come to us. Yeah. I mean, if Fields doesn't work out, we'll eat a 6th round pick all day.
Sure.
Like,
yeah, I would too. I mean, put that thing on a sandwich. I'll take that. I'll take that any day of the week.
Because I mean, I don't know if you remember when the whole Fields rumor started. It was like they may have to go to first, may give a second for Fields.
Oh, yeah.
And nope, just a 6th round pick.
And I'm sitting here saying I would do that. I would give a second for Justin Fields.
I know,
and not even think twice about it. And then you do it for a 6th, and you got a 3rd for Kenny Pickett. So the NFL will forever not make sense. But
no,
yeah, I agree with that. One question I'll bring up here from Afton, regular listener. Thank you, Afton, for your question. Are there any positions you would like the team to address maybe when training camp cuts start? We already talked about wide receiver. Mm-hmm. I am still like, what are we doing at nickel corner?
Yeah. That's 1A and 1B for me.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. Anything else though?
I guess outside linebacker depth just a little bit, like, because you know Golden is still he's a free agent. They haven't re-signed yet. Like Nick Herbig is a great 3, but I mean having the 4 of them last year was really awesome. Yeah, I mean it allowed. I mean that Buffalo playoff game without TJ was. I mean it was rough. Don't get me wrong the way it started, but ultimately once everybody got settled in, it wasn't like the beating you thought it would. And a big reason of that was the trio at that point of Smith, Golden, and Herbig. Like, I mean, having that 4th is very crucial, I think.
Yes, I agree. Theory is DeMarvin Leal their 4th right now?
I don't know. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm kind of off the Leal train.
Sure.
It's just tough.
I get it.
I've wanted him to be good forever. You know, I've rooted for the guy. I'll root for anybody that puts on the black and gold first and foremost. I'm not going to hate on anybody. I was trying to find, you know, the silver lining of Mitch Trubisky for 2 years. You know, like I will be the eternal optimist.
Yeah.
But with Leal, I mean, it's tough.
Yeah. And I mean, 3rd round pick, if that's a dart throw anyway. Mm-hmm. You go after a guy with traits. I think they thought he could probably. I think they thought he was more athletic than he's turned out to be, and that he could overcome some of his size deficiencies
Mm.
based on that. But that was not the case, and I
Now,
think that they're trying again
yeah,
with Logan Lee, right?
that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, maybe not necessarily this year, but like just some of the comparisons you've been seeing for him. Like with the Kiesel and everything. Like
Yeah,
okay, I can see it. I mean, he needs some work. Like,
sure. Yeah.
but
Technically, yes.
yeah,
His RAS was through the roof though.
I know. So I mean, he played on an Iowa defense, and you can
Yeah,
say many things about Iowa. A bad
you
defense
can.
is not
Yes.
one of them.
That's right. You can say many things about Iowa. We would need a different black and gold podcast
Yeah,
if we were going to try to do that, but
yeah,
um so okay, anything else as far as position groups here? I'm trying to think. I could I would like it if they brought in an outside corner still too. I
yeah.
think if they were to add 2 or 3 more guys in the cornerback room, one of those being a
Mhm.
starting caliber nickel and the other being a rotational guy on the outside, I think that would be a big deal. Um, and there's
Eh,
still guys out there. What about this guy's still sitting out there? Why is Justin Simmons without a job right now? I mean, what's going on?
I have no idea. Like, that's a guy I would love on this team.
Yeah.
Like,
Terrell Edmonds has a contract.
I know.
Why is Justin Fields or Justin Simmons,
Simmons.
excuse
Yeah.
me, still on the open market here?
Yeah. Like,
Doesn't
I
make sense.
have no idea. I'm like, Con, get on the phone, do what you got to do, man.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I think what it was is Simmons was more recently the highest paid safety in the league, and then
mm,
some more contracts happened. I think he thought he was going to get a big deal on the market.
right.
And I think he held out for the big deal. The big deal never happened. And now the market's gone. And so I don't know where he's going to land. He might land back in Denver at this point. Who knows? We'll see. They could use him.
Mhm.
Um,
And then how
but
do you feel about inside linebacker?
okay. I
Like,
actually feel great about inside
mhm.
linebacker, but that's assuming that Peyton Wilson can be healthy all year.
and,
Because
and I'd like
I
to,
like
well, I
Roberts.
was
I
gonna say,
like Landon
yeah.
Roberts. Yeah.
And then Cole Holcomb. I don't know if he's
Yep.
coming back or not. So, like, I don't need like a stud inside linebacker. It's just like a depth piece, maybe.
Yeah.
But like, not saying they need it. That's one I'm on the fence about. It's just like because we're not getting much on Cole Holcomb. I don't know if he will even be back this year. They
Yeah.
sound slightly optimistic, but not optimistic enough to even give you like a November type of date or anything. Like,
Right. Yeah. It's what's the word? Indeterminate amount of time.
yeah,
They've got him out for whatever it's going to take, really. But
yep,
let's see here. I'm pulling up the Steelers schedule. I want to do a little fun exercise here at the end. If you want to find it and pull it up,
yeah.
um, I'm just gonna ask to give a couple stats here about um about that. Before we get into that though, okay, thumbs up or thumbs down on the Steelers schedule release video. What you got?
I actually give it a thumbs up.
Okay, okay.
For
I'm
one,
going thumbs down
oh,
because
how come?
I like some of the other stuff out there. I
That's
just
fair.
think what the Steelers do is cheesy, but I don't hate it. I'm just saying, like, I think that they could do better.
They could.
But
Last
yeah,
year was awful though.
yes.
So
Oh man,
so at least
yes.
this year had like
Maybe it's more of a thumbs
yeah.
sideways or whatever because it's like
It's their half
trending
step
back
up.
up, not
If you
quite
have a
there.
3-year-old, it's like that little steps you get so they could
Oh,
get to the sink and stuff. Like that's the step
yes,
up they're doing. So yeah, I'll give
right.
you the sideways thumb.
The problem is once they get to those steps, now she like flicks off the light switches when I'm not ready for it,
Oh,
and
my
I'm like,
kid loves
"Hey,
that.
hey, turn that back on. I need that right now."
Yep.
uh, oh, too much fun. Okay, okay. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna ask you a couple questions here about the schedule. All right, to close things out here. All right, I want you to pick the hardest game before the bye week for the Steelers. Give me the hardest game before the bye week for the Pittsburgh Steelers. What you got?
Their bye week is which week now? Was it
Week 9,
9?
right
Okay,
after the Giants game.
right
Yep.
after the Giants. So pre-Giants.
Pre-Giants. Yep.
Honestly, the hardest game I give them, most people will probably think Cowboys,
Okay.
but I think it's going to be that game at Las Vegas the next week.
Okay. Against the Raiders.
Not that like the Raiders are anything special. It's just with Pierce as the new coach. I mean, year one, they were when he took over last year. They were like kind of hot. Like we'll be playing a big game against Dallas on Sunday Night Football the week before, and then that
Sure.
following week, Sunday at like 4 o'clock, I think. That just seems like that Mike Tomlin letdown, that West Coast
Okay.
letdown.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I get you there. I'm gonna go the week after that, Sunday Night Football against the Jets.
Okay.
Assuming Aaron Rodgers is healthy, I think that this Jets team is dangerous, man. I really
Yeah, they
do.
are.
And I keep doing my AFC rankings and quarterback rankings and stuff. I'm like, who am I missing here? What? And then I get like through my whole list, and then I'm like, I'm missing a team here. Or I'm missing a quarterback here. Oh, it's the Jets. Okay, now I've got to reorder my whole thing because
Yep.
they're way up there. They were an afterthought after 4 snaps last year, rightfully so, because Rodgers was out. But I think that defense is really good. They've got a lot of good pieces on offense. I was excited about them before Aaron Rodgers. And then Zach Wilson obviously was not the guy, and you needed a quarterback. Now you've got one. If it all doesn't go to crap because of Russell, or because of Aaron Rodgers'
Right.
self, then I think that this is going to be a really tough team. So that's my pick for
Yeah.
toughest game before the
Well,
bye.
to go back to my Raiders pick, I mean, that sandwich in between Cowboys on Sunday night
Yeah.
and the Jets on another primetime game. I
Sure.
mean,
Yeah, it does feel like that. That's the one where you're like, ugh.
I know that's
At
not.
the very least, Chris, they will come out flat, right?
Oh yeah.
It's guaranteed. It's
Oh yeah.
guaranteed.
Like I said, that's that Mike Tomlin West Coast flat
Yeah.
special. I mean,
Yeah. It'll be
it,
10-0 Raiders at halftime, and Steelers fans will be ready to pull their TVs down and throw them in the
I know.
yard.
Then
And
it's
then
like
they'll make a little bit of a comeback. They might win. They probably won't. We'll see. But
it'll
I
ultimately be
agree
a
with you.
17-14 game. Flip a coin
Yeah.
for who it's going to be. Like,
Yeah.
yep.
They'll have put up 35 the week before against Dallas, and everybody's gonna be like, "Oh, this team is ready for anything," and then they'll put up 13 against the Raiders.
I know. And that's why, like I said, like not like roster on paper the hardest, but just mentally knowing how some of those games go and sandwich in between those big ones when, Mike Tomlin's out west, as the record kind of speaks for itself. Like,
Sure. Yeah. All right. A couple more questions here. Which team on the Steelers schedule that's supposed to be really good won't be this year?
the Browns.
Okay. Okay. I kind of feel like they're right there with the Steelers. I would pit those two teams pretty close together in rankings. I have the Steelers higher, and whether that's me being a homer or whatever, I just like the Steelers quarterback situation better now, and I think that they're much improved on what they were last year.
Between the Browns, like the quarterback situation being murky, that defense was just like Jim Schwartz at his best last year. That I just don't know if they could replicate that.
I was going to say there's a real chance that there's some regression to the mean there for them.
Yeah. And so
that was the only reason they were 11-6, right? Was that defense, because the offense couldn't do anything without Nick Chubb and with the quarterback's influx all the time. Okay. Oh, how many games does Tyler Huntley play for this team for the Browns? That's my question.
I'll set the over under at 6.
Okay. I'll take the under because they've got Jameis Winston still too, but I think that it's gonna be close.
Because he's gonna have that one game with like 3 picks. Huntley will be like right back out.
Right. Okay, so my team in this question that's supposed to be really good, but I think is not going to be as good this year. I think it's going to be the Cowboys. I just don't like the vibes around the Cowboys right now. I know you have to play them on Sunday Night Football, and it's going to be hyped up. It's going to be prime time. You're going to get the best of Dak Prescott. You're going to get the best that team has to offer. No Dan Quinn coaching up that defense. Questions about their defense, and they just didn't do much. They purchased and drafted a lot of project type players. I just don't know. I think that they're ready for a step down as well. So that would be my team there. Okay. All right. Final question for you. We're going to go to week 11 when the Steelers start their divisional play. All right. Weeks 11 through 18. Chris, I want you to give me the Steelers record in those 8 games.
There's 8 games. Personally, it's probably the homer in me.
Okay.
I see. I want to say 6-2, more
Okay,
realistically 5-3.
sure.
But you
Five and
know
three.
what? I'll go 6-2.
Okay, 6-2. All right. What are the two losses then? Are you giving them?
We'll split with the Ravens.
Okay.
All right, here's my bold thing. We're going to
All
beat
right.
both the Eagles and Chiefs and split with the Ravens and Bengals.
Okay. I could literally see that happening. That was going to be my high end prediction
Yeah.
there.
Like I
I
said, I'm the
think
eternal optimist.
sure. Personally, I think that the Steelers, if the Steelers go 4-4 in the stretch, I'd be happy with that if
Mhm.
they have a good start to the year. But I think that there's the potential for more. I'm going to say 5-3, and I'm going to say that the Steelers do beat the Chiefs, but they do lose once to the Ravens and they lose to the Eagles in that stretch because I think that the streak against the Ravens that's got to end eventually. They're going to win one of these games, right?
Yeah.
Maybe
Oh
I don't
yeah.
know.
I
We'll
mean,
see.
at least one.
Yeah, at least one somewhere in here. But I think going to Philadelphia always screws the Steelers over, and
Mhm.
so I'm going to say that
Well,
they'll lose that one.
the Eagles are one too. Like going back to the question before about who may not be as good. Like I mean,
Sure.
the Eagles
Yeah.
since they're like 2 years ago when they were like at the top of the
Yep.
NFC, it's just been a slow dive down a little bit.
Yep.
Jalen Hurts kind of gets hurt, and I mean, how awesome would it be to play Kenny Pickett that week?
Oh man. Oh man. Until they beat us, and then that would just be that would be it. That would be
I
Mike
know,
Tomlin's laydown game against Kenny Pickett in Philadelphia.
but like they're a team. It's just they're going to be awesome. Or I mean, they lost Jason Kelsey to retirement. Their
Yeah.
offensive line in general is getting a little old with Lane Johnson. Um, Nick Sirianni, I guess he's on the hot seat. I know Philadelphia is one of those overreaction cities. It was just hot last year. I don't know if that's inside the actual team if it's a
Yeah.
hot seat or not.
Sure.
But I don't know. The end of the year, like I said, they're going to be awesome. Or I just kind of think because I lived in Philadelphia for a few years, so I still have some friends there and stuff. And just kind of going off of how they feel about the team, I'm like, all right, like
Yeah.
I just kind
It
of see, yeah,
could be a down season. I almost put them in my teams who could be worse
yeah,
than they're being projected article. I almost did. I actually had them in there, and then I took them out for I
hmm,
think the Chargers. I put the Chargers in there because I think there's a lot of hype around the Chargers
oh
because
yeah,
Jim Harbaugh and everything. Their over under is 8.5, which is actually higher than the Steelers. For some reason,
hmm,
for some reason, the odds makers love giving Steelers fans free money, right?
right.
So I don't know. I think that they're probably going to be less
No,
than
I agree
expected.
because I'm
But
anxious. I'm interested to see how Herbert plays for Harbaugh. Who I'm not
well,
saying he's like tough. He's quirky. He's interesting. He's
yeah,
got his
and
own
Greg
way.
Roman of all people is his offensive
I
coordinator.
know,
I mean, it
like
was it was a run first mentality in Baltimore. The Ravens got rid of Roman for a reason because he couldn't elevate the quarterback to the next level,
right.
and they brought in Todd Monken to try to change things. Is Greg Roman going to go into LA and make a star out of Herbert? That's gonna have to be Harbaugh, right? It's
I
gonna have to
know.
be. So, all right, man. Hey, let's wrap this thing up. It's been a lot of fun. We got a chance to talk about a lot of different things.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
if you had to pick the Steelers standing as our final thing here, pick the Steelers standing in the AFC North at the end of the year, where are you going?
Like you, I think they're going to be in the hunt for number one.
Okay.
But I see him second, especially if Joe
Okay.
Burrow's healthy this year. I just see the Bengals winning the
Sure.
division. But I do think
Okay.
this year we finish ahead of the Ravens and the Browns.
Okay. I'm going to say the Steelers win this division, and I've been leaning that way now for a couple weeks. I'm probably going to stay that way unless we start seeing crazy stuff out of Burrow in
Mhm.
Cincinnati. But I'm still very concerned about that situation. Steelers know how to play the Ravens.
Yeah.
The Browns are the wild card here, but I think the Steelers have what it takes to win this division. And let's not forget the Browns and the Ravens have just as tough a schedule as the Steelers do this year. It's a little more spread out, but
Right.
I see this as a team that can win this division and restake their claim to that AFC North crown. We'll see.
I hope so. And like what you said with Burrow, like I do kind of forget. Like I don't know if you listen to the Pat McAfee show ever, like what AJ Hawk had to
Every
say
now and then.
about
Yeah.
it. Like,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
Like where
That's
he
where
said
my angst
yeah,
is coming from for that. Yeah.
because he said like he had that same surgery and his wrist was never the same. And
Yeah.
but he did, put the caveat in, that was at a time when the surgery is different. It's gotten more
Right.
advanced now. So I'm like, I'm still tipping my cap to a healthy Joe Burrow if he's
Sure.
healthy.
Yeah.
And I
I,
mean,
I'm very worried about that defense personally. I think that
mm,
that's actually the bigger question right now than Joe Burrow, but that combination scares me for Bengals, even though their
no,
schedule
I
is a
agree.
lot easier than the other three teams. But
Mhm.
all right, Chris, it was a pleasure having you on, man. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
I'm just like everybody else. They're probably tired of hearing us talk, seeing us write about this off season. Like I am even for preseason at this point. I'm
Yeah.
not going to get as excited as I was last year about preseason, but
Yes.
just to see the pads popping a little bit,
Yep. You gonna make
like
it up to training camp this year? You try to do that?
uh, well, I have a newborn
Yeah.
expected on June
Okay.
28th, so probably
Oh,
not.
sure. Sure.
Are
Well,
you?
congratulations though.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But I will be excited to see like anybody from the team that's going up. Like
Yeah.
I will definitely be tuned in as much as I can be.
Sure. I made it up for the first time ever last year for training camp. Me and my brother went and met my uncle up there who lives up there and
Oh, that's
went
awesome.
to training camp. So I'm hoping we'll get to do it again, but we'll see, man. It's gonna be a lot of fun to see how this team grows together. Thank you to all the listeners for tuning in and listen to us blab for an hour here. We appreciate it. We'll be back next week on the Steelers Sunday Night Q&A. Until then, we hope you have a good one, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.